The book of Genesis is a book of beginnings, of the heavens and the earth, humanity and animals, of families and nations, of life and death. But in some sense, Genesis can be understood as a recap. You know what a recap is. It's when your favorite team barely makes it into the end zone and the referees have to watch the play again on the monitor. And when you turn on the news at night and you watch about what the reporters talk about, the anchors, as they retell you about the things that have already happened earlier. They recap. A recap isn't just rewatching. It's seeing the same thing from a different angle. It's drawing in closer to notice aspects of the story or the event or the people that you didn't notice before. And truly, if done right, you watch it or read recaps so that you can approach life better. Referees watch recaps so they make sure that they make the right decision. We watch the recap of the news about the road construction so we can get on the right route to work the next day. We re-look at our past year to see how we can do better next year. And that is how I want to approach the book of Genesis. As a beginning, but also a recap. Something that we read freshly so that we can have a fresh start in our following of Jesus. This kind of changes how we read the book of Genesis. Instead of just reading it like a history book or as a telling of how things and peoples began, we read it as a book that contains truth for how God's people are to approach the themes of life, even in the midst of life. How many of us have started something off right, but somewhere in the middle, we got taken off course? How many of us began the Christian life with God's voice loud in our ears, only to slowly turn up the volume of chaos? Genesis is for those who are striving to be who God made them to be, images of God, reflections of God. But all of us at certain moments have allowed that image to become distorted or covered over by masks or marring. And so, Genesis is a message to us to start again, to start anew, to recap and remind us who we are and whose we are. We understand stories as always having kind of a beginning, middle, and end, but the more I think about it, the Christian life and God's story don't have an end per se. Instead, we have a beginning, a middle, and a new beginning. For example, the Bible begins with a garden and ends with a garden. The Bible begins with God's people with him in paradise, and it ends with God's people with him in paradise. The Bible doesn't speak of some sort of permanent end. Instead, it talks about how God made the heavens and the earth and how God is making a new heavens and a new earth. So in this middle space between beginning and new beginning, with our life with Jesus, we recap God's desires for his creation in order to better reflect him in a world that desperately longs for him. So, this is how we are going to read the amazing story of Genesis. We'll see how God calls us to be his images, beginning. How that image can become distorted, middle, but how God never gives up on his creation as he seeks to bring us to a new beginning, where our image of him is redeemed and restored in light of Jesus. And so, with that said, let's begin.